The restaurant was abuzz with energy. The sounds of laughter, clinking glasses, and soft background music filled the air. Golden fairy lights hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the long dining table where my colleagues and I were seated. Tonight was supposed to be my special night. For the past 5 years, I had dedicated myself to this company, often working late, solving problems that no one else wanted to tackle, and mentoring junior employees even though it wasn't part of my job description. My boss, Richard, had been hinting for months that I was next in line for the senior manager position, and tonight, at this very party, my promotion was supposed to be announced. I had imagined this moment countless times: the applause, the pride, the validation. I adjusted the hem of my navy blue dress and glanced around the table. My team was in high spirits, celebrating the company's quarterly success. At the head of the table, Richard stood up, clinking his wine glass with a fork to get everyone's attention. The room quieted down, and my heart raced with anticipation. "Tonight," he began, his deep voice carrying over the chatter, "I want to take a moment to recognize someone truly exceptional, someone who has shown incredible dedication, drive, and talent in just a short time here at the company. It's rare to find someone who can make such an impact in only 3 months." My smile faded. 3 months? Richard turned to my coworker, Lisa, the new hire, Lisa. "Lisa," he continued, "you have exceeded all our expectations. Your leadership, creativity, and problem-solving skills have impressed us all, which is why I'm thrilled to officially announce your promotion to senior manager. Congratulations." The room erupted in applause. I sat frozen, my fingers gripping the stem of my champagne glass, my throat tightening as I forced a smile. I joined in the clapping as Lisa stood up, blushing and graciously accepting her new title. This couldn't be happening. I felt my world shift slightly as Richard turned toward me, as if suddenly remembering I existed. He grinned and said, "Of course, Kathy, you've been such a valuable member of the team. We appreciate everything you do." That was it, a hollow acknowledgement, a pat on the back after 5 years of hard work. I swallowed the lump in my throat and smiled wider. "Of course, Lisa absolutely deserves it," I said, raising my glass in a toast. Richard nodded approvingly. "She does a lot more than you already, Kathy. You should take notes." Laughter filled the air. Lisa giggled awkwardly and muttered, "Oh, I wouldn't say that." But the words were already out there, hanging in, the air like a slap across my face. I laughed along with them. What else could I do? Cry? Beg? Ask him why he had led me on for months only to humiliate me? No, instead, I lifted my glass to my lips and took a slow sip. As the night went on, I smiled, chatted, and celebrated. But inside, a storm was brewing. When the party finally ended and I stepped outside into the cool night air, I pulled out my phone. My fingers trembled slightly as I composed a short, simple email to HR. Subject: Resignation Letter. Submission. Dear Richard, please find my official resignation letter attached, effective immediately. Best, Kathy. I hesitated for only a second before hitting send. As soon as the email left my outbox, I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I felt something unexpected: relief. But I wasn't done yet. On Monday, Richard was about to find out exactly what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. The office felt different that Monday morning. I walked in through the front doors with a sense of quiet satisfaction, my resignation letter, already sitting in Richard's inbox. He had no idea what was coming. At first glance, everything seemed normal. The receptionist greeted me with a bright smile. My coworkers gathered near the break room, chatting over their morning coffee. Lisa was already at her desk, basking in the afterglow of her big promotion. I wasn't angry at Lisa. She hadn't done anything wrong. The real problem sat inside the corner office, the man who had lied to my face for months, making me believe I was valued, only to discard me like I was nothing. I took my time settling in, calmly placing my bag beside my desk and booting up my computer. I wanted Richard to come to me, and right on cue, his office door swung open. "Kathy, my office, now." The entire floor went silent. People exchanged nervous glances. No one had ever heard Richard sound like that before, urgent, confused, desperate. I stood up slowly, smoothed my blouse, and walked into his office. The door clicked shut behind me. Richard was already seated at his desk, my resignation letter printed out in front of him. He looked up, eyes scanning my face as if trying to figure out whether this was a joke. "You're leaving?" His voice was incredulous. "Yes," I said, sitting down across from him, folding my hands in my lap. "Effective, immediately." "But why? This is so sudden." "We didn't discuss this." I let out a soft laugh. "We didn't discuss Lisa's promotion either, but here we are." His jaw tightened. "Kathy, that wasn't personal. She just outperformed you. She's been here for 3 months," I said, tilting my head. "But sure, if that's what you believe." Richard leaned forward. "You know I appreciate you, right? You've been such an important part of this company for 5 years. I don't want to lose you." I stared at him for a long moment, taking in the sheer audacity of his words. "You don't want to lose me," I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "But you had no problem overlooking me for a promotion I worked years for. You had no problem laughing when I was humiliated at my own celebration party, and you had no problem telling me to take notes from someone who just got here." His expression shifted, his usual smug confidence beginning to crack. "Look," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should have handled it differently. But you resigning out of nowhere? This isn't the right move, Kathy. You're making an emotional decision." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I sent that email on Friday night, Richard. If this was just emotion, I would have stormed out that same evening. But I didn't. I planned this, and I'm leaving on my terms." His hand curled into a fist on the desk. He wasn't used to losing. "So, what's your plan? Go to one of our competitors? Because I have to remind you, Kathy, that we have non-compete agreements." I laughed again. "Oh, Richard, you have no idea. I don't need to go to a competitor." I took a deep breath, relishing the moment. "Do you remember Andrew Carter, the CFO you let go last year?" Richard tensed. Of course, he remembered. Andrew had been one of the company's most valuable executives, but he and Richard had clashed too many times. Richard had forced him out thinking he was replaceable. "Andrew reached out to me a few months ago," I continued. "He's starting his own firm, and he wanted me to lead the operations department, a director-level position. I turned him down at first. I was loyal to this company." I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. "But Friday night changed everything. I called him right after I left the party, and he made the offer again. I accepted." Silence. Pure, unfiltered shock. Richard stared at me like he was trying to process the information. "You're leaving for Andrew's company?" he finally said, his voice tight. "I start next Monday," I confirmed. He opened his mouth, closed it, then exhaled sharply. "Kathy, be reasonable. This company has been your home for 5 years. We can work something out. We can talk about—" "I don't want to talk," I interrupted smoothly. "This decision is final." He clenched his jaw. "You won't be able to come back." I smiled. "I won't need to." I turned, walking to the door. Just before I stepped out, I paused. "You know, Richard," I said over my shoulder, "it's funny how you only realize someone's worth when they walk away." Then I walked out, closing the door behind me, leaving him alone with the consequences of his actions. And it felt amazing. When I stepped out of Richard's office, I could feel all eyes on me. The open workspace had gone eerily silent. The usual Monday morning chatter was replaced by a thick tension in the air. My coworkers weren't even pretending to work anymore. Heads peeked over cubicle walls, eyes darted away the second I met their gaze. They knew something had happened, and in a matter of minutes, they were going to know exactly what. I returned to my desk with a serene calmness, opening my email and forwarding my resignation letter to the entire leadership team. Subject: official resignation notice, effective. Immediately, I am stepping down from my position at the company. It has been an experience I will not forget. Best, Kathy, simple, professional. But the underlying message was clear. I was done. A few seconds later, the first whisper spread through the floor, then another, then another. The wildfire had begun. I didn't have to wait long before someone approached me. "Kathy, is it true?" I turned to see Rachel, one of the few people I actually trusted in this place. She looked stunned. I nodded, giving her a small smile. "Yeah, it's time for me to move on." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "Wow, just wow. I mean, I get it. But I didn't think you'd actually leave." "Neither did Richard," I muttered. She let out a half laugh, half scoff. "Well, he's an idiot. Everyone here knows you deserve that promotion." A few more coworkers started creeping toward my desk, pretending to look busy while blatantly eavesdropping. Even Lisa had poked her head up from across the room, her eyes darting between me and Richard's office like she wasn't sure if she should feel guilty or relieved. I could sense her hesitation. She wanted to say something, but she didn't, and honestly, I didn't care anymore. 10 minutes later, just as I was packing up the last of my personal items, my inbox pinged with an urgent meeting request from Richard. Subject: urgent. Let's talk. Meeting request 15 minutes. Location: my office. I stared at the email for a long moment before sighing. Desperate men do desperate things. I took my time walking back to his office. When I stepped inside, the door closed softly behind me. Richard looked different now, the arrogance gone, the smugness gone. Instead, he looked like someone who had just realized they made a very, very big mistake. "Kathy," he started, leaning forward. "Let's talk about this. You're making a rash decision." I let out a soft laugh. "Richard, I gave this 5 years of my life. The only rash decision here was yours." His lips pressed into a tight line. "Look, I admit that I mishandled things with the promotion. But we can fix this. I'll match whatever Andrew is offering you." I tilted my head. "You don't even know what Andrew is offering me. Does it matter?" "Does it matter?" he shot back. "We'll figure something out. I can get you a better salary, more flexibility, maybe even—" I held up a hand, cutting him off. "You don't get it, do you?" Silence. I leaned forward. It was never about the money. It was about respect. His jaw tensed. "I don't want to stay in a company where my work is ignored until I threaten to leave. I don't want to be matched only when I have one foot out the door. If I wasn't valuable to you before, why should I believe I suddenly am now?" Richard's nostrils flared slightly. He wasn't used to losing control of the conversation. "Kathy, be reasonable. You're walking away from a stable position for what? Some startup that might not even succeed?" I smiled. "That startup is being run by someone who values my contributions, and I'd rather bet on myself than stay in a place that treats me like I'm disposable." I stood up. "Goodbye, Richard." And with that, I walked out, packing the last of my things. It felt surreal as I carried my box to the elevator. A few coworkers clapped softly, small acknowledgments of my silent victory. They knew. Lisa, still sitting at her desk, finally gathered the courage to stand up and walk toward me. "Kathy, I didn't know," she said. I raised an eyebrow. "Didn't know what?" She flinched, but I was already stepping into the elevator. As the door slid shut, I let out a slow breath. This wasn't just the end. This was the beginning. The Monday after I walked out of Richard's office for the last time, I stood in front of a sleek glass building, taking in the sight of my new beginning, Carter and Associates. Andrew's company was smaller than my old one, but it pulsed with energy and ambition. It was filled with people who were building something, not just maintaining a machine that someone else had created. I stepped through the doors, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: excitement. No more being overlooked, no more being undervalued, no more Richard. As I rode the elevator up to the top floor, my reflection in the mirror-like doors looked different. More confident, more alive. This wasn't just a new job. This was freedom. The moment I stepped into my new office, a real office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a door that I could actually close, I knew I had made the right choice. The morning was filled with introductions, meetings, and onboarding, but everything about it felt different from my old workplace. For starters, people here actually listened. During my first leadership meeting, Andrew turned to me smiling. Kathy, I want you to take the lead on our new initiative. We're restructuring operations, and with your experience, you're the best person for it. Just like that. No begging, no proving my worth over and over. They already knew my value. I nodded, suppressing the urge to glance around and see if this was some kind of test. I'd love to, I said simply. A few of my new colleagues smiled in approval. Andrew nodded as if he had expected no other answer. This was how things should be. No games, no politics, just respect. The first sign that things were falling apart at Richard's company came 2 days after I left. My phone buzzed with a message from Rachel, Kathy, OMG, Richard is losing it. Ever since you left, everything's a mess. I smirked but kept reading. Rachel, he had to call an emergency meeting because no one knows how to handle half the things you used to do. Turns out Lisa doesn't actually do more than you already. She doesn't even know what she's doing. I laughed out loud. Of course. Of course, Richard had overestimated Lisa's abilities and underestimated mine. A second message came in. Rachel. Oh, and get this. 3 clients already reached out asking for you by name. When they found out you left, they weren't happy. I felt a rush of satisfaction. Richard had spent years taking me for granted, and now he was learning a lesson he should have learned a long time ago. Some people are not replaceable. That afternoon, while reviewing strategy documents in my new office, my assistant poked her head in. Kathy, you have a call on line 1. It's a company called Dawson and Company. They said they used to work with you and want to discuss moving their account over. I blinked. Dawson and Company was one of the biggest clients at my old company. Put them through, I said, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. A moment later, I heard the familiar voice of Mark Dawson, the CEO. Kathy, he said, warmth in his tone. I heard you moved to Carter and Associates. Let's talk. I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. Of course, Mark. What can I do for you? Within a week, 3 of my former company's biggest clients had reached out to me, all expressing the same frustration. Things aren't the same since you left. We don't feel like we're in good hands anymore. If you're leading operations at Carter and Associates, were interested in moving. And so, one by one, they did. I wasn't stealing clients. I didn't need to. They were leaving on their own because they trusted me, not the company I used to work for. And Richard? He was scrambling. Rachel kept feeding me updates. Rachel, Lisa is drowning. She's not ready for this role at all. I heard Richard yelling at the leadership team in a closed-door meeting this morning. Rachel, the board is furious about the client losses. Investors are not happy. Word is they're putting pressure on Richard to fix this fast. I could only imagine the look on his face, the panic, the regret. And the best part? I wasn't even trying to hurt him. I was just thriving somewhere else. That Friday afternoon, just as I was finishing up for the day, my phone buzzed with an email from Richard. I raised an eyebrow and opened it. Subject: a proposal, Kathy. I'd like to have a conversation. I believe we can come to a mutually beneficial arrangement. If you're open to it, let's set up a meeting next week to discuss options. Looking forward to your response. Richard and I leaned back in my chair, laughing softly. He was desperate, and for the first time in 5 years, I had all the power. I stared at Richard's email for a few moments, letting the sheer irony of it settle in. The man who had dismissed me so easily, the man who had laughed at my expense, the man who had told me Lisa does a lot more than you already was now the one reaching out. And I knew exactly why. His world was falling apart. I took my time crafting my reply. No urgency, no desperation, just calculated control. Subject: a proposal, Richard. I'm available for a brief meeting Monday at 10 a.m. Let me know if that works for you. Best, Kathy. I hit send and closed my laptop. I wasn't walking into that meeting to negotiate. I was walking in to watch him squirm. At precisely 10 a.m., I walked into the familiar glass office building I had left behind weeks ago. Everything felt different. The receptionist hesitated before greeting me, unsure if I was a guest or a ghost from the past. Employees stole glances as I passed by. They all knew. And then, as I stepped into Richard's office, I saw him. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, a nervous energy in the way he sat, his fingers tapping restlessly on the desk. He wasn't the same arrogant man who had belittled me weeks ago. "Thanks for coming in," he said, forcing a tight smile. I sat down, crossing my legs and placing my hands in my lap. "Of course. What's on your mind?" He exhaled and leaned forward. "I won't waste your time. We need you back, Kathy." I said nothing, just let the words hang in the air, heavy with irony. He continued, "I underestimated your role here, I'll admit that. But we can make this right if you return. I'm prepared to offer you a substantial raise, a senior executive title, and full decision-making authority over your department." He sat back, clearly expecting me to be impressed. I wasn't. I tilted my head. "So, let me get this straight. You had 5 years to recognize my value? 5 years to promote me? 5 years to respect my work? But instead, you passed me over for someone with 3 months of experience and told me to take notes on how to be better. And now, after losing key clients and watching your company spiral, suddenly you're offering me everything I deserved all along." Richard's jaw tightened. "Kathy, come on!" I held up a hand, stopping him. "Let me ask you something. If I never left, would I be sitting in this chair right now? Would you have given me this offer out of appreciation? Or are you only doing it now because you're losing control?" His silence said everything. He tried to mask it, but I saw it in his eyes. The truth. He never saw my worth until it cost him everything. I let out a small, amused laugh. That's what I thought. Richard's desperation broke through. "Kathy, be smart about this. You have history here, a future. Do you really want to throw away all the hard work you put into this company?" I smiled. "Richard, you still don't get it, do you?" I stood up, smoothing my blazer, and leaned slightly forward. "I never needed you. You needed me. And now you're finally realizing that." His face darkened, but I could see it, the flicker of panic behind his eyes. I turned, walking to the door, but paused just before stepping out. "You should take notes, Richard," I said softly, echoing his own words back at him. "Maybe next time you'll learn to value the people who actually make your company run." Then I walked out, and this time I never looked back. Back at Carter and Associates, things were thriving. Our client roster had nearly doubled. More and more companies were leaving Richard's sinking ship and turning to us. And then, on a quiet Friday afternoon, Rachel sent me one final update that made me laugh out loud. "Rachel, Richard just got fired. The board forced him out. They couldn't recover from all the client losses." I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee. Perfect. Richard had thought I was replaceable. Turns out he was. And me? I was exactly where I was meant to be.